Hi and welcome to Insight's Industry Immersion Series. In this series, you will meet data scientists from all across the world as they come and discuss what's trending in the data science and AI space. Let's begin today's episode of Industry Immersion with yet another speaker.
So, hi friends, welcome to our next session on industry speakers. And today we have a very special guest from all across the other side of the world. So, please join me in welcoming Matthew. So, Matthew, he hails from Las Vegas. So, he's running Renze Consulting. So, before we get started, I would like to describe Matthew in a few words, and then possibly I'll hand it over to Matthew to take it forward. So the first thing that you would get when you just Google out Matthew is you get a plethora of websites that refer to Matthew. Is one of the very popular faces out there in the data science world. And before I even get started about describing his background, I would love all of you to thank Jigna. So Jigna is our April 2019 student who's taken this proactive measure to reach out to Matthew and get him to kind of talk to our audiences here. So a big thank you to Jigna, and all of you can possibly convey your thanks to Jigna because of her efforts. Today we have Matthew sitting here with us, and he's going to share a lot of valuable knowledge with all of us. So let me talk about Matthew a little bit. So Matthew is a data science consultant, and he's been very active in this space. He's also an author and a public speaker, plus a trainer. So he's kind of touched almost 2.5 lakh lives, especially software engineers, or people who are trying to IT professionals or trying to build intelligent softwares. So Matthew has had this wide experience, wide exposure, and he serves as a consultant. He served a lot of fantastic companies. It could be as small as a startup, but it goes as high as Fortune 100 companies across the globe. So this is something that is very interesting. And by the way, he's also Microsoft's most valuable professional. This is in itself a very important point. So what we can learn from him is what makes somebody really valuable in the industry as a professional. So there are a lot of things that I'm pretty sure he's going to share with us today. So apart from this, he has authored a lot of courses. He's actually contributed a lot to open source software. And he's one very interesting fact is he's organized Antarctic Conf, which is one of its kind. It's a technology conference, a conference in Antarctica. So which in itself is a huge deal. So I think this is more or less a very small gist about Matthew, but I think I'll not waste any further time. I'll hand it over to you, Matthew. I think we have a pretty long and interesting session that is coming up from your side. So we're all eagerly looking up to you. So over to you, Matthew. I'll be on mute. I'll also shut off my video so that you can continue with the session.
Excellent. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me as well. All right. Let me get my presentation going here. So over the past few millennia, humanity has gone through several major technology revolutions. Around 10,000 years ago, we entered the agricultural revolution. This revolution led to new technologies like farming, the plow, and the wheel. As a result, agricultural societies spread from the cradle of civilization to the ends of the earth. Around 250 years ago, we entered the industrial revolution. This revolution led to new technologies like steam power, the factory, and electricity. As a result, industrial societies flourished and spread across the globe. Less than 100 years ago, we entered the information revolution. This revolution led to new technologies like telecommunications, electronic computers, and digital information. As a result, high-tech societies flourished and spread across the globe and throughout cyberspace. With each of these revolutions, human society was radically transformed over a relatively short period of time. With each revolution, we saw a wellspring of new technology that had never existed before, and with each revolution, there were those who were prepared and thrived in this new world, and those who were unprepared and became redundant, unemployable, or obsolete. Today, we're entering the next major revolution in human history, the AI revolution. Like the previous tech revolutions, we'll likely see a fundamental transformation of our economy and our society. We'll likely see a wellspring of new AI-enabled technologies, and there will be some people who will prepare and thrive in this new world, and others who unfortunately will not be prepared and will become redundant, unemployable, or obsolete. The purpose of this presentation is to answer the following question. What should I do today to prepare my career for the coming wave of AI-enabled automation? What should you be doing right now to prepare as we enter this next major technology revolution? However, I don't want to just prevent you with a bunch of pie in the sky wishful thinking. I want to provide you with advice that's specific, actionable, pragmatic, and timely. Advice that you'll be able to put to use today in order to come out on top when all of the dust settles after the AI revolution emerges. To answer this question, I would like to offer you the following 5 recommendations. Educate yourself about AI, upgrade your career for AI, invest in an AI-first economy, use AI responsibly and ethically, and adapt to what comes next or become obsolete. With each of these recommendations that we're going to cover today, we'll go a bit wider in scope and longer in our timescales. But first, before we get into the practical advice, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about what artificial intelligence is and what it isn't. So artificial intelligence is a field of computer science that attempts to create machines that act rationally in response to their environment. An AI is any machine that perceives its environment and chooses actions that will maximize the likelihood of achieving a goal of some kind. Essentially, it's just a machine that takes data as input and produces the best output that it can, given what it currently knows. Some examples of AI include computers that can play chess, Google's predictive search algorithm, non-player characters in video games, and the navigation software on your smartphone. Essentially, any computer algorithm that replicates some aspect of human intelligence is essentially a form of artificial intelligence. Now, when I say artificial intelligence, many of you will immediately think of sentient robots like R2-D2, Data from Star Trek, or HAL 9000. This is what we refer to as artificial general intelligence, or general AI. General AI is essentially a type of AI that can solve a wide variety of general purpose problems. It's a type of futuristic AI that doesn't currently exist today. In fact, it will likely be several decades before we reach this level of highly flexible and adaptable AI. However, this is the direction that many things are moving in the AI industry, and it's the eventual goal of many AI research projects. On the other hand, many of you may think of modern AI, like IBM's Watson, Amazon Alexa, or Google's self-driving car. This is what we call artificial narrow intelligence, or narrow AI. Narrow AI is focused on solving a very narrow set of specific problems, a limited domain of problems. It's the type of AI that we're going to be talking about today. It's the type of AI that exists today as well. However, it's also the type of AI that will likely revolutionize our world over the next few decades. Now, it might surprise some of you that artificial intelligence has been around for quite some time. In fact, the field of AI, or artificial intelligence, dates all the way back to the 1950s. In the past, we had some machines that were capable of making rational decisions. However, they had to be explicitly programmed to make these decisions, and they could only operate successfully within very constrained environments. There was a lot of hype about what artificial intelligence would eventually be able to do. Experts predicted machines would soon replace all human labor, but it never happened. By the end of the 1990s, machines couldn't even solve basic general-purpose tasks that even a toddler could solve. The inflated hype about the potential of AI and subsequent disillusionment when none of these things ever happened led to what we now refer to as the AI winter, or AI winters. A period or multiple periods between the late 70s into the early 2000s where funding for AI had almost entirely dried up. However, by the mid-2000s, the last AI winters ended and things are starting to warm up again. Today, in 2020, the AI industry is booming because of recent advances in machine learning, deep learning, and reinforcement learning. If this trend continues, which it looks like it will, in the near future, AI will likely become even more lucrative as it begins to disrupt almost every industry imaginable. So hopefully now we're all on the same page about what AI is and what it isn't. An AI is essentially a machine that can act rationally in response to its environment. We're talking specifically about narrow AI rather than general AI. Narrow AI can solve a very limited set of problems. And it's an industry that's been through various cycles of booms and busts, largely based on the ratio of hype to real-world application. So step 1, educate yourself about AI. Why is education important during a technology revolution? Why can't we just continue to go about our day-to-day lives as the world changes around us? With each of the previous technology revolutions, there was a need to update human education to function in the new world. With the agricultural revolution, humans had to become proficient with agricultural technologies. As a result, we had to learn how to farm, domesticate animals, and use a plow. With the Industrial Revolution, humans had to become proficient with industrial technologies. As a result, we had to learn how to operate steam engines, run machinery, and use electricity. And with the Information Revolution, humans had to become proficient in information technologies. As a result, we had to learn how to use telephones, work with computers, and program software. With the AI revolution, humanity will once again need to update its basic skill set to become AI literate. This will need to learn how to train AI models, develop AI applications, and use AI-enabled tools. So whether you realize it or not, our world is going through a major transition as we speak. We're entering the era of artificial intelligence and machine learning, a future where machines will be doing many of the jobs that human beings are currently doing today. As a result, the software industry is preparing to go through a major transition as well. In the past, we would explicitly program a computer step by step to solve a problem. This involved a lot of if-then statements, for loops, and logical operations. In the future, today, actually, machines can teach themselves how to solve problems on their own. We just need to provide the data. And now, this is a radically different way of working with a computer than we're used to as software developers and IT professionals. While there's a growing demand for individuals with the skills necessary to implement AI solutions, there's currently a shortage of people capable of teaching machines how to solve problems in this new way. As a result, those with the skills necessary to leverage AI are commanding significantly higher salaries, and this trend doesn't seem to have any end in sight. Think back to our last major technology revolution, the information revolution. Each of us had a choice to learn either to learn how to use a computer or to stay computer illiterate. And now think of all of the opportunities that computer literacy has afforded you over the years, and think of all the disadvantages to those who can barely use a computer. The same will be true of AI literacy during the AI revolution. Those who are AI literate will be highly functional in our new economy, and those who are not will sit on the sidelines and eventually become obsolete. So, how should you educate yourself about AI? What is the right way to teach yourself about this new set of technologies? First, learn the basics of AI. Learn the difference between what is real versus what is hype. Learn about data science, machine learning, deep learning, and reinforcement learning. Learn the difference between artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence. Everyone in the general public needs to have a basic level of AI literacy to function in an AI-driven world. Second, choose your objective with AI. What do you actually want to do with artificial intelligence? Do you want to train new AI models using existing machine learning algorithms to automate tasks that have yet to be automated? Do you want to develop new AI applications using pre-trained AI models to solve problems that have yet to be solved? Or do you just want to augment your human skills to become more efficient using pre-built AI tools? You need to decide what you want to do with AI before you can decide which skills you'll actually need to meet those requirements. Third, get the right training. For each of the three objectives that we just discussed, there's an ideal learning path or curriculum. For AI trainers, you're going to need training in both data science and machine learning. For AI developers, you're going to need programming skills and the ability to use pre-trained AI models. For AI tool users, you just need basic AI literacy and training on each specific AI-enabled tool as necessary. What's important is that you're getting the right training necessary for your chosen objective. Fourth, you need to practice your skills. No matter which training you choose, you're going to need lots of practice. It's one thing to know what a neural network is. However, it's an entirely different thing to be able to train a neural network to detect fraud. So you can practice with online competitions, participate in online competitions like Kaggle competitions to apply your skills while learning from your peers. You can create or maintain an open source project to share your knowledge with others while you learn. Or you can find low-risk projects at work to practice your new skills and build your portfolio. Ultimately, you need to find lots of opportunities to practice the skills that you've learned. Finally, choose reliable sources of information. Unfortunately, there are a lot of AI hucksters, charlatans, and snake oil salesmen out there, and more growing each day. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of people out there using big hype and a lot of buzzwords to try taking advantage of you and take your money. You definitely want to avoid these kinds of people. Instead, you want to find trusted sources for all of your information and training. So be sure to check your sources' credentials, qualifications, and experience. You want to make sure that you're getting the most value from your investment in your AI education. To recap our first recommendation, educate yourself about AI. Learn the basics of AI, choose your objective with AI, get the right training for that objective, practice your skills, and choose reliable sources. Step 2, upgrade your career for AI. Will AI take my job? This is the most common question I get asked when I tell people that I work with AI. During each of the previous technology revolutions, we've seen fundamental shifts in employment. During the agricultural revolution, we saw the rise of the farmer and the decline of the hunter-gatherer. During the industrial revolution, we saw the rise of the factory worker and the decline of the artisan and craftsman. During the information revolution, we saw the rise of the office worker and the decline of the manual laborer. During the AI revolution, we'll likely see a similar shift in careers within our labor economy. Now, imagine you could ask a horse in the early 1900s how the automobile or tractor would have changed its life. It probably would have told you that, well, a car or a tractor is going to make its life a lot easier. I mean, it sure looks that way. Unfortunately, to the horse, or for the horse, these technologies also made them obsolete to the economy. In fact, we hit peak horse in 1915, just as the automobile and tractor began to scale up in production. Today, the emergence of modern AI is beginning to have a strong impact on our labor economy. In the near future, this impact on labor will likely be tremendous. AI will automate a significant number of jobs in the next few decades. Given the economics driving this trend, it's less a matter of if a given job will be replaced and more a matter of when. Some experts are currently attempting to predict which jobs are most likely to be eliminated based on measures like their repetitiveness and complexity. In fact, we can even predict what type of AI technology will be necessary to automate a variety of occupational tasks. For example, we can see which retail jobs will likely be eliminated in the coming years as AI continues to be applied to retail sales. Even the medical industry isn't immune to this coming wave of automation. While these medical tasks are generally more complex and less repetitive than most jobs, they are rapidly becoming within reach of modern AI. We can then extrapolate this information to determine which sectors of our economy will be hit the hardest by AI automation. The length of the bars in this chart represent the total number of workers in each type of employment in the United States as of 2016. The red bar segments represent the proportion of jobs at risk of automation in the next 2 decades. The blue bar segments represent the proportion of jobs that are not at risk of automation in the next 2 decades. As we can see, if these predictions are correct, the future landscape of labor in the next few decades is likely going to look radically different than it currently does today. In fact, we can even use these data to predict which cities will be most impacted by unemployment from AI automation based on the industries that exist in those cities. As we can see, Las Vegas, Nevada, where I live, is currently at the top of the list. In fact, it's estimated that 65% of all jobs in Las Vegas are at risk of automation by 2030, and half of all jobs in the US are at risk of automation in the next 2 decades. There are certainly jobs that will be more resistant to automation. These jobs require more human aspects like compassion, creativity, empathy, and trust. However, there are many jobs today that are unlikely to exist or will exist very differently in the next few decades. This will create a tremendous disruption to our labor economy with unemployment, retraining, and early retirement. On the other hand, it will create tremendous opportunities for new jobs that either don't yet exist or for the IT professionals that build these automation systems. The big question right now is whether AI will create more jobs than it eliminates. Historically, technology revolutions have created more new job opportunities than they've destroyed. However, there's pretty compelling evidence to suggest that the AI revolution may be different. We're beginning to transition from an economy where most of the work of value is done by humans to one where most of the work of value will be done by machines. As a result, it's important to ask yourself, which side of this new economy will your job be on? The side that's leading our new economy or the side that's being eliminated? So how should you upgrade your career for AI? What should you be doing right now? So first, determine if your job is at risk of automation. Is your job simple, repetitive, dangerous, error-prone, or expensive? If so, it's at a higher risk of being automated. Or is your job complex, creative, compassionate, or uniquely human? If so, it's at lower risk of being automated. However, it's important to note that most jobs will not be completely or entirely automated. Rather, they'll be partially automated as many of the day-to-day tasks within each job become automatable by AI. As a result, you may end up spending most of your day essentially babysitting software or robots. That's pretty much how a lot of these jobs are going to look in the future, the ones that are not fully automated. Second, decide if your company is at risk of becoming obsolete within our AI-first economy. Are you still using traditional business tools while your competitors are automating with AI? Are you still relying on guesswork while others are using data to improve decision-making? Or are you in an industry that's currently being disrupted by a new AI-enabled business model? If so, you either need to help your company embrace AI now, or you may want to find an employer that's already moving in the right direction. It's quite likely that many employers will not survive the AI revolution, just like we saw in the previous technology revolutions. Third, you need to choose an AI career path. You need to decide how closely and deeply you want to work with AI. If you want to train AI models, you're going to need to find a company with access to lots of data and compute power to be used for training. If you want to develop AI applications, you'll need to work at a tech company that uses pre-trained AI models from third-party AI providers or builds their own models internally. If you just want to use AI tools, you can pretty much work for anyone, provided that they encourage the use of automated AI tools. Ultimately, you need to decide what you want to do with AI before you can decide on a proper career path. Fourth, get into the AI value stream. You don't need to work at Google to make a good living in the new AI economy. However, you do want to be part of the AI value stream or the ecosystem built on top of AI technologies. This can involve working for tech companies in horizontal markets that are positioned within the AI value stream. For example, companies working on the Internet of Things, big data, virtual and augmented reality, robotics, and drones. Or it can involve working for vertical industries built on top of AI technologies. Essentially, look for industries that generate lots of data to train AI models or use AI models to improve their existing products and services. Finally, focus on the uniquely human aspects of your job. Avoid specializing too deeply on the tasks that can be easily automated. These include tasks that are simple, repetitious, or possibly dangerous, things that are easy to automate. Instead, specialize on the aspects of your job that cannot be easily automated. These include aspects like human interaction, creativity, compassion, and establishing and maintaining trust. These are the tasks that will remain when all of the mundane tasks have been automated away. So to recap our second recommendation, upgrade your career for AI. Determine if your job is at risk of automation. Decide if your company is at risk of becoming obsolete. Choose an AI career path. Get into the AI value stream and focus on the human aspects of your job. Step 3, invest in an AI-first economy. Who will be the world's first trillionaire? Who will win and who will lose in the new AI economy? During the agricultural revolution, we had visionary societies like the Sumerians, Egyptians, and the Chinese. They all capitalized on key technologies of the agricultural revolution. As a result, they became some of the largest civilizations on Earth at the time. During the Industrial Revolution, we had visionaries like John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, and Henry Ford. They all capitalized on key technologies of the industrial era. As a result, they became some of the most influential and wealthy industrialists on the planet. During the Information Revolution, we had visionary companies like IBM, Microsoft, and Google. They all capitalized on the key technologies of the information age. As a result, they became some of the most influential and wealthiest corporations on the planet. During the AI revolution, there will likely be future visionaries. They will capitalize on these key AI technologies. As a result, they will likely become some of the most influential and wealthiest people, businesses, or potentially governments on the planet. In fact, many experts predict that the world's first trillionaire will likely be created by wealth generated from an artificial intelligence or based on AI technologies. The AI revolution will likely have a significant impact on our economy and capitalism as we know it. These changes will require that individuals, businesses, and governments need to adapt in order to function in an AI-first economy. First, we're seeing a shift in returns to capital versus returns to labor. Returns to capital are essentially how much money you can make by investing in capital assets. These include investing in machines, software, data, and more. Returns to labor are essentially how much money you can make by soliciting your labor for income. This includes physical labor, knowledge work, and even highly specialized labor. Over the past few decades, we've seen a continuous upward trend in returns to capital. As a result, the value that you can get from investing in capital assets continues to increase year after year. On the other hand, we've seen a continuous decrease in returns to labor. As a result, the value that you can get from each hour of labor is continuing to decrease. Essentially, labor is becoming cheap as automation is becoming highly profitable. This phenomenon is referred to as the Great Decoupling. Essentially, productivity in the United States continued to rise with income year after year. However, somewhere in the 1970s, labor compensation broke away from this productivity gain trend. This diverging trend is likely to continue well into the future and become further amplified with increasing AI automation. Second, the AI revolution will likely lead to a significantly more nonlinear economy. Those that have these smart machines are going to have even more power, and those without smart machines, unfortunately, will have even less power. It will become progressively harder for individuals and small businesses to compete with large established tech companies. Third, data may likely become one of the most valuable resources in our information economy. So those that have the most data and the ability to enable AI with that data will wield tremendous power in our information economy. In fact, there are data sets that exist today that are currently valued at over $1 billion. That is $1 billion for just a bunch of ones and zeros sitting on a hard drive somewhere. So how do you invest in an AI-first economy? First, invest in yourself. The best way to leverage your time, money, and resources is to invest in your education and your career first. We've covered a lot of this in the previous two recommendations. However, it's important enough to be stated again. The best investment you can make right now is an investment in yourself. Second, don't depend solely on your labor for income. Your labor is going to become progressively less value as we automate more jobs. This includes manual labor, knowledge work, and even highly specialized labor. Instead, you need to begin putting your money into wealth-generating assets. These include investing in companies, selling your own products, or providing automated services. Your labor can only make you money while you're working. However, assets allow you to make money 24 hours a day, even while you're sleeping. Third, invest in the economy as a whole. The AI revolution is ultimately going to lift the entire economy. All businesses in the economy will ultimately do better, other than the ones that get eliminated because they're not prepared for the AI revolution. So you don't need to try to outsmart the markets. You just need to invest in the economy as a whole, the global economy. My personal investment strategy is as followed. And now I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not offering financial advice. I'm just telling you what I do so you can do your own research and decide what you should be doing for investment. First, I diversify my investments to reduce my overall risk. I do this using index funds with very low expense ratios, like Vanguard's Total Stock Market Index Fund or their World Stock Market Index Fund, to get global diversification. Index funds spread your money out across the entire stock market to minimize your overall risk. Essentially, the entire global economy would have to collapse in order for me to lose all my money. But if that happened, I've got bigger problems. So I buy low and I hold all of my investments. I don't day trade, I don't speculate, I don't short sell or try timing the market. Instead, I just invest regularly in my index funds. I put extra money in when the market's low. I keep all of my investments long-term, and then I rebalance once a year. And I have a safety net during economic downturns, like now. I have just enough in the bond market and semi-liquid assets to cover me during recession if I need to. And I progressively grow the size of the safety net as I get closer to retirement, when I will likely need it more if there's a recession. I'm just following a very simple yet extremely effective investment strategy endorsed by many of the top experts in the world. Fourth, I invest specifically in AI technology. If you want to go beyond the basic investment strategy, you definitely can be more strategic about your investments in AI. Once again, I don't necessarily recommend this, but this is something you may want to look into if you're interested in becoming more of an investor specifically in AI tech. So if you own your own business, or you're an entrepreneur trying to start a new business, or even someone trying to solve a problem within a business or in your own life, you can invest in AI solutions to improve both your life and your business operations. Look for solutions to real-world problems that are automatable and highly scalable. There's a certain pattern to tasks that work well for AI that once you're able to identify them, it's easy to see which jobs will or which tasks will easily be automated and which ones are going to be very difficult to automate. It's a highly valuable skill. You can invest specifically in AI companies and tech startups. Look for companies that have lots of data, a competitive advantage, or are disrupting an entire industry with AI. Or you can invest in AI tech funds. These funds are actively managed portfolios of some of the most promising AI tech companies in the world. They have the potential to make lots of money, but they're more costly because they're actively managed, and they're riskier than just investing in the economy as a whole using index funds. Fifth, invest early for compound growth. Exponential curves, like the growth of GDP per capita in the United States, start out slow and then explode quite rapidly. The sooner you invest in the AI economy, the better off you'll be exponentially. The next Googles, Amazons, and Microsofts are out there now or soon will be. You don't need to find them yourself if you're investing in the AI economy as a whole using something like index funds. You just need to invest now so that your investments will reap the reward of this exponential growth over time. So to recap our third recommendation, invest in an AI-first economy. Invest in yourself first. Don't depend solely on your labor for income. Invest in the economy as a whole. Invest specifically in AI technology, and invest early for compound growth. Step 4, use AI responsibly and ethically. With great power comes great responsibility. During the previous technological revolutions, humans gained access to new superpowers. In many cases, these new superpowers were abused, often to the detriment of many less fortunate individuals. Agricultural societies gained the ability to raise large armies. They often misuse this new power to acquire new land, enslave human labor, and subjugate entire civilizations. Industrial societies gained the ability to mechanize warfare. They misuse this superpower to control resources, maintain colonies, and gain political power. Information societies gain the ability to wage cyber warfare. They've definitely misused this power with mass surveillance, industrial sabotage, and election tampering. With the AI revolution, this is likely to be more of the same. We're going to discover some amazing new superpowers in the next few years. However, there will be many people out there who will try to use these new powers for their own self-interest and personal agendas. With technology revolutions, we're like children getting our hands on a sharp object for the first time. We typically don't learn our lesson until we've cut ourselves once or twice. The difference with AI is that we might not get a second chance to learn from our mistakes. With great power comes great responsibility, and with AI, we have the greatest responsibility that humankind has ever known. The emergence of modern AI has led to some rather interesting ethical issues in recent years. For example, we now have facial recognition systems throughout our cities that may be violating our right to privacy. We have AI-generated advertisements that use consumers' behavioral profiles to manipulate their purchase decisions. We have text generation software like GPT-2, which can generate propaganda and fake news on a massive scale. We have deep fake technology, which can be used to impersonate politicians, celebrities, and executives for nefarious purposes. We have deep nude technology that can digitally remove a person's clothing without their consent and be used for blackmail and exploitation. And we have semi-autonomous weapons that are very close to becoming fully autonomous weapons. These are just a few of the current ethical issues that we're facing with modern AI. There are much more advanced and sophisticated AI technologies just over the horizon. Given this, the number and severity of these ethical issues is likely to increase significantly in the near future. To put it simply, we're going to have some very difficult ethical issues to deal with in our lifetimes. For example, what does privacy mean in a world with constant and pervasive AI surveillance? We currently have very little privacy, and we're about to get a lot less. How do we avoid bias and discrimination in our AI models? It's easy to create biased AI models that will directly impact the lives of many people. Even more concerning, should we allow AI to be weaponized? Or should we ban fully autonomous weapons before we enter a new AI arms race? And if we do ban these weapons, how long until a conflict pressures a government override this directive. How should we allocate resources in a post-human labor world? Some economists suggest that we need either a guaranteed basic income, a negative income tax, or some kind of social stipend. But how do we pay for that? Should we tax robots in order to offset the inevitable unemployment from automation? How do we even begin to determine the true value of each robot's labor in order to tax their labor appropriately? And if we do tax robots, what rights should they have in our society? I mean, we've fought wars over the idea of no taxation without representation. What will the machines, or more likely the capitalists that own the machines, demand in return for paying the bulk of all taxes in the world? We have a lot of ethical questions that we need to answer in the coming decades. The most important of these ethical questions, though, is what does this all mean for humanity? What is our purpose in a world where machines do all of the work of real economic value? Does this technology set us free, or does humanity eventually become obsolete? So how do you use AI responsibly and ethically? What should you be doing right now to ensure that we don't misuse our new AI superpowers? First, start asking the difficult questions now. If you haven't spent any time thinking about any of the ethical questions that I just posed, then you're probably not prepared for what's rapidly approaching. You don't need to spend all day philosophizing about the legal, ethical, and political implications of AI. We'll leave that up to the lawyers, philosophers, and politicians. However, you do need to start thinking about what your core values are and whether they agree with or conflict with these new AI-created dilemmas. Second, avoid bias in your AI models. It's very easy to accidentally or intentionally create bias in your AI models. If you train a model with biased data, you get biased results. Garbage in, garbage out. This creates feedback loops that can accidentally reinforce socioeconomic divisions in our society. And this will be especially true when these algorithms begin to impact the lives of millions of people. Third, provide transparency in your AI models. If you automate a decision with AI, you should make the decision-making process as transparent as possible. If AI becomes a magic black box that can never be questioned, then how can anyone get any recourse when it makes an incorrect decision? As a result, I recommend that you always use the simplest AI tool that effectively solves a given problem. In addition, when possible, use explainable AI tools. Explainable AI is an active area of research right now. It's advancing quite rapidly, but hopefully will be the norm before too long, where the AI is able to explain why it made the decision that it did automatically for you. Ultimately, ask yourself if you could explain to a judge how your model made the decision that it made. If you can't explain it to a judge, then it's not transparent enough, or maybe a jury of your peers. Ultimately, you have to be able to explain it to whoever's deciding whether you've broken the law or not with your AI model's decision. Fourth, protect your private data from abuse. If people knew what I could do with their data in the right algorithm as a data scientist, they'd probably be a lot more cautious. However, the general public is generally quite a few steps behind data scientists in this domain. Think about what data you're willing to make public and protect everything that you want to remain private. Only entrust your private data to organizations that you trust can and will protect your data. Finally, demand more from our leaders. We have some serious AI-related political issues that we need to address in the near future. Unfortunately, most of our politicians have very little understanding of AI and its overall implications, and thus they're unable to make effective public policy decisions right now. So we need to choose representatives that understand AI and how it will either be a benefit or a detriment to our future society. In addition, we need to choose the right corporations to lead our society in the right direction. You vote for these corporations every time you spend your money on their products and services. So vote for them with your dollars and hold them accountable if and when they fail us. To recap, use AI responsibly and ethically. Start asking the difficult questions now, avoid bias in your AI models, provide transparency in your models, protect your private data from abuse, and demand more from our leaders. This leads us to our final recommendation: adapt to what comes next or become obsolete. And now in this final recommendation, we're going to go a bit bigger. We're going to look at the very big picture. Our time scale will extend out to the end of our lives, and we're also going to get a bit more philosophical as well. So what becomes obsolete versus what becomes the norm? Why do some aspects of society disappear into obscurity while others become so common that we just take them for granted? During the previous technology revolution, some things became obsolete while others became the norm. During the agricultural revolution, hunter-gatherers and nomadic tribes became obsolete obsolete, while farmers and cities became the norm. During the Industrial Revolution, slave labor and draft animals became obsolete, while factory workers and industrial machines became the norm. During the Information Revolution, human computers and analog data became obsolete, while office workers and digital computers became the norm. During the AI revolution, the question naturally becomes which parts of our world will become obsolete and which things will become the norm. No matter what worldview we adopt in the 21st century and beyond, in the long run, there are only three likely paths forward for humanity with AI. Either AI and humanity peacefully coexist together forever, AI destroys humanity if we don't accidentally destroy ourselves first, or maybe intentionally, or AI and humanity eventually merge and become one and the same. There, unfortunately, really aren't any other real possibilities in the long run. Now, it's highly unlikely that humans will be able to coexist with AI forever. It's much more likely that we'll either destroy ourselves first or AI will eventually displace us, and then we become obsolete. So the most realistic and hopeful path forward is that humanity eventually merges with our technology. Now, this idea may seem very far-fetched now, but these cell phones in our hands are already an extension of our brains, and the younger generation is ready and willing to have them connected directly to their minds if and when the technology becomes available. In many ways, we're already augmenting our human bodies and minds with man-made technologies on a daily basis. For example, artificial limbs, pacemakers, contact lenses, cochlear implants, neurotropic drugs, deep brain stimulation, and more. It may sound strange, but we are likely one of the last generations of Homo sapiens to inhabit the Earth. Whatever comes next will likely be very different from what we've known for the past 200,000 years. So how do we adapt to what comes next to avoid becoming obsolete? First, embrace change. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "Change is the only constant in life." Technically, he actually said panta rhei, which translates from Greek into everything flows, but I think you get the point. If you fight change, you'll continuously struggle with it your entire life. Not only will you struggle, but you'll lose this battle with change every time. If you embrace change, you can adapt to what comes next. This is the key pillar of the Agile Manifesto, the software movement that's essentially taken over the entire software industry, and many philosophical and religious worldviews. Second, be skeptical, but not too skeptical. In the post-truth era, it's really easy to be duped into believing incorrect information. Skepticism is the natural antidote to this intellectual disease of modern society. In addition, you need to be skeptical of your own beliefs as well. Always question and continuously update your beliefs based on new evidence as it becomes available. This is essentially the scientific method. We need to apply it not just to our businesses, not just to our governments, but to our own lives. Third, keep an open mind. One of the worst things we can do is get stuck in our own dogmatic worldviews. The information bubbles we create and reinforce in our society make this even more dangerous. Keep an open mind you want to keep an open mind in order to find information that may potentially disagree with your current beliefs. It's quite likely that most of our belief systems may become obsolete yet within our lifetimes. And if you don't understand what I mean, just ask your grandparents or read letters from people, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, to see how much the world has changed and how their belief systems have changed over that amount of time. Fourth, pick your battles wisely. There are some things that you should stick to your guns on and other things that you need to be more flexible about. Figure out what your core beliefs are and fight for those beliefs when necessary. However, be flexible and open-minded with just about everything else. Ultimately, you just want to make sure that you end up being on the right side of history. I know there's a lot of people in the past that probably wish they would have believed something else or gone in a different direction as a major societal thing like the COVID-19 pandemic happened. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people now that feel that they were on the right side of history and the wrong side of history another decade or 50 years from now. Finally, be mindful. Our brains evolved to survive in a very different environment than our modern technology-driven society. As a result, much of our suffering today is caused by this conflict between our human nature and our technology. Mindfulness is how we minimize the suffering and learn to coexist peacefully with our technology. Honestly, making the commitment to practice mindfulness and meditation daily is probably the smartest thing I've done in my adult life. I highly recommend it to everyone. I just wish it was more common in the Western part of the world. So to recap our final recommendation, adapt to what comes next or become obsolete. Embrace change, Be skeptical, but keep an open mind, pick your battles wisely, and be mindful. All right, so let's wrap things up and learn where to go next for more information. First, I have several online courses that cover the basics of artificial intelligence, data science, and machine learning. I think I have over 12 courses on Pluralsight now. I'm working on a couple of free courses as well. If you'd like free access to any of these courses, any of my courses at all, just send me an email. My email address will be on the last slide, and I will send you free 30-day access so you can take a look at these courses. Most of them are very short, just high-level overviews to get people started in these topics. Second, be sure to check out my website. I have tons of free articles, videos, and courses. I also offer on-site training and consulting services to help businesses and teams get started with AI, data science, or machine learning. Third, I encourage you to engage with me and the rest of the AI community. So please be sure to rate this presentation. If there's a way to rate it, I have a system set up for that. Ask questions during the Q&A, send me comments via social media, and please provide me with your feedback about this presentation. I take your feedback very seriously. I use it to improve each and every one of my presentations. So if you either mention it during the Q&A or send me an email, tell me what you liked about this presentation and what things you think I could do better on, I would really appreciate it. Fourth, in summary, my 5 recommendations to prepare for the AI revolution or prepare your career for the AI revolution are to educate yourself about AI, upgrade your career for AI, invest in an AI-first economy, use AI responsibly and ethically, and adapt to what comes next or become obsolete. Finally, how does our story end? Technology is inherently amoral. It is neither intrinsically good nor evil. The same technology can be used to take mankind to the moon, or it can be used to propel warheads into cities. As a result, it's going to be up to us as a society to choose whether we want to use AI to make the world a better place for everyone, or to use it for our own power, profit, and control. The choice is ours to make. What will you choose? Thank you.
So thank you, Matthew. I think this was a brilliant presentation, and what I really loved about your presentation is the beauty in your slides. So there was a lot of story that you narrated and very vital points which I think everybody should keep in mind. Primarily, if you're heading towards the space of AI, definitely these points will turn out to be a few of the most important learning that we'll have ever in our lives. So thank you for these learnings, Matthew. Matthew, I think we have hardly a little less than 15 minutes, and there are a plethora of questions. Okay. I'm pretty sure we can't answer all the questions. So what I'll do is I'll try my level best to kind of cut down the questions. Whatever I can generalize, I'll share it with you. So let's start with the first one. And this is kind of an interesting question. And this question is about now the world of AI in itself is pretty wide. Okay? There are like too many things that are happening in this particular space. What are the few specific ones in AI field that you see in the upcoming days is going to be very, very important?
Oh, that's a great question. So the things that I think are going to be most important here in the very near future are something called self-supervised learning. I don't know how well known this is in the industry yet. It was even relatively new for me just a few months ago. But self-supervised learning is this realization that we don't need labeled data sets in order to build like a deep learning model from scratch. What we can do is find structural aspects of the data that can be used in order to train pre-train the model, the base layer of the model. So for example, imagine you've got an image, rather than having to label this is a cat, this is a dog, this is something else, which takes a lot of work. What we do is just remove a pixel from the image and ask the algorithm to predict what that pixel should be or what that block should be. And then by running this initially, you can run this billions of times and have it do this thing that doesn't require any human supervision, and it will essentially learn the primitive structure of images. It'll essentially learn what the lines are, what the curves are, and what the basic shapes are. And then you can essentially pre-train it with something more complex and then eventually label it, and you get the same result without having to have a massive trained data set. So not only is this going to cut down the amount of labeled training data we need, it will allow us to develop entirely new scenarios that we've never even thought about. Certain aspects of language, like predicting which word is missing from a sentence is just a great structural way to train a model without having to label a bunch of data. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing coming up here in the next year or so, at least from all of the research papers that I've read. There's definitely a lot of new things on the horizon. I just read today about someone coming up with computational trees to replace neural networks for certain problems like solving differential equations and calculus as well too. There could be a lot of promise there. Modular networks is probably going to be very big. What else is coming up? Anything involving deep reinforcement learning will likely be very big over the next few years. It's still not production quality yet, but I see a lot of companies. Microsoft purchased one just this last year to try automating robotic process controls with deep reinforcement learning in a hierarchical or kind of a progressive stacked manner. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out.
Awesome. So I think self-supervised it totally ranks at the top, especially because the way the world is progressing, you need machines to start making decisions better than we kind of telling the machines what needs to be done. So that is awesome. So Matthew, as a follow-up question to this very specific question, I mean, if you consider right now, the world has been highly disrupted because of COVID. Data has spoiled, right? It has been totally spoiled. So something that we were relying heavily on till so far, we always expected that our data should be in good quality, and the world had just started getting into a situation where it was capturing data in the best possible form. Now we are headed to a situation where all the data that we have collected has lost all the patterns, and COVID is going to stay for some time at least. Where do we see the world of data science and AI? I mean, to what extent do you think this has been kind of pushed back, or is it the other way?
I see it actually in both directions. Oops, I'm getting a bunch of echo or feedback. Okay, so I see it in two directions. So it's going to set things back a bit in terms of our ability to use historical data to make future predictions, because if the world has changed in a completely unpredictable way, our algorithms can't just immediately adapt to that. However, if we're doing things, from a statistical perspective, like a Bayesian statistical perspective, our models should be continuously updating over time, and we should be continuously managing and maintaining those models. So our ability to adapt is essentially limited by whether we're doing this in a Bayesian approach or whether we're updating our models frequently enough, So there are ways to handle this situation, but it's for anyone that has not updated their model before COVID-19, they're probably getting terribly imprecise or inaccurate predictions. On the positive side, though, I think this is going to accelerate a lot of things that were going to take a decade or more to happen. So even, things as trivial as working remotely from home, I guess maybe that's not trivial, but like the software developer space, like we've been doing this in the technology field for years now, and the rest of the world has just figured out, oh, wow, we can actually work online. And I talked to someone from a university, and he said that they have been trying for the past 20 years to get courses online. And so every year they have this meeting like, hey, how's our online learning initiative coming? And they didn't make any progress. 20 years they've been trying to do this. They've put a lot of time and effort into it. In 1 week after the coronavirus thing, they were able to completely shift their entire university online. So something that was taking 20 years to happen happened in 1 week because they had the right impetus for it, for the change to happen. We're going to see this happen, I think, largely in the data science space and the AI space. So the desire to automate a lot of roles that previously had not been automatable because the economics didn't make sense. They had low-cost labor to do the job, or it was not highly dangerous, or think of any of these reasons why you may not automate a job. But now the economic equation has completely rebalanced. And in many cases, the cost to automate is much lower than the cost to have humans in that specific position, either because it's dangerous, because it poses a risk in terms of spread of the virus, or because that industry's closed down to humans. So, if you imagine Amazon having a factory with a bunch of humans in it, that's a high-risk environment for COVID-19. If they have a warehouse that has no humans in it and just machines, that poses no risk whatsoever. I mean, you can sit and monitor it remotely and not, be at risk at all. I guess technically you have to be on site to fix the machines and stuff, but ultimately, I think it's going to escalate a lot of the long-term transitions on a much shorter time scale now. And the same thing with data science. I mean, just look at the number of people that have, well, I guess in some ways it's moved in both directions. Some people have become more skeptical of models, and other people have come to trust statistical models and machine learning models with their lives now. And so it looks like it's moving a lot of things along quite quicker than I would have expected. And hopefully that will, despite how negative this situation is right now and how difficult it's going to be for a lot of people, in the end, it produces, a lot of positive outputs. If you look at the previous, technology revolutions and stuff like that, most of them happened on the backs of either some kind of pandemic or some kind of global catastrophe, which accelerated the, rate of change along, coupled with the technological discoveries of the time.
Wonderful. So I think, what you said is pretty apt, because back here in India, where acceptance to technology it does take some time. We have seen schools turning online overnight. So almost the entire country is running right now online. So this is something that is interesting. Yes, there are two parts of the story. Even I get the point that there would be certain places where we'll be hampered because of loss of existing data. But there would be the other space where you can always build your data. You can always start capturing data fresh. You can always start thinking from a different perspective to solve the same problem. So thanks for that point, Matthew. So coming to the next question here, Matthew, this is an interesting question. And this is about how do you really, since you're a consultant, I think you would be the right person to give the proper answer for this. So how do you show your customers the value of AI, that you're going to kind of possibly suggest them, or they're possibly going to implement them, the AI products in their particular companies? So how do you help them derive value out of it? How do you explain them the idea that what is the value add out of this solution?
Well, I think the first step is trying to identify a problem that would be a good candidate for solving with artificial intelligence. So I typically start by presenting some other solutions that exist in either similar industries or completely different industries, but where the problem is similar to what they're facing. And in my head, I have a massive vocabulary of these different problems and solution pairs. So just finding the ones that are most applicable to them to show them how this is actually transformed another industry, how it's automated a specific task in another job. And then after showing them something similar, we try finding a problem that we can automate in a way that makes sense economically. Economics drives all of this. So we're trying to find typically what I like to do is rank a series of problems and solution pairs based upon their, the value that you derive from the solution versus the cost to implement the solution based on a largely subjective assumption about what data they have, how difficult it's going to be to train the model. Is there a pre-trained model that already does this out of the box? A whole bunch of variables that factor into the cost. And the value is usually determined by the business. They can rank, automating tech support calls would be this valuable. Whereas, if we could automate, the janitor, essentially, have a robot clean the floor, it'd be this value. Usually they're much more similar, but just to give you an idea, in one case you'd be, essentially automating a call center and making it a call center much more effective versus automating a single person cleaning a floor to make them more effective. So looking at, both of those situations, then we try seeing what is the most cost-effective way to solve this problem in a way that doesn't require a huge commitment. We just want to get a little win when we're first starting, or a quick win. So we find the thing that's going to provide the most value, that has the lowest cost, and we try solving that problem with the data that they have available. And then we use a highly iterative process. We're trying to understand the business problem. We're trying to see what data we have access to, what data do we need to collect, or is there not enough data to even solve the problem? We got to do a massive amount of data cleanup work. In fact, that's usually about 80% of any data science project I've ever worked on, is just cleaning up the data, finding and cleaning data. And then we train some models. We see what can we get the accuracy, or depending upon what measure we're using, area under the curve, or specificity, precision, recall, whatever measure we're trying to optimize subject to a series of constraints. If we get it to a level that we believe will perform well enough to meet the requirements, Then, we deploy that to production and we babysit it. We make sure that it's essentially doing what it's supposed to be doing, and we always have a human overseeing it to make sure that it's not behaving incorrectly. And then, if you're able to get through this entire cycle, something to production, then you start looking at the next item on the list, and you just work your way down in terms of the return on investment. So, what is the cost to solve this problem, and what is the value that this problem is going to provide? And just keep working your way down until you've automated everything you can. And that's the general approach as far as consulting. So, and other people might have very different approaches to it than I do, but that's how I approach it.
I think that totally makes sense. So if I were to put it this way, that the idea is be granular, go deep, and try to get quick wins for your customers so that they believe in your solutions, right?
Yes, and take a highly iterative and experimental approach to everything. This isn't like programming an ATM machine or some like writing software in a very traditional space. Like when you write the code or when you build, you don't know whether it's actually going to do what you need it to do or not. So you have to be willing to pivot constantly and move in different directions and essentially follow the data or follow the feedback to the path of least resistance to a model that actually solves the problem.
Perfect. I think this is a very important point that you highlighted here. So a lot of people are under the presumption that when you're working with machines, when you're working with AI, you got to be right the first time. Whenever you predict, you have to be right the first time. So it never works that way. I totally agree, and I totally understand on this particular point. But a lot of people are under the assumption that, if you're doing machines, they're going to possibly give you better output than what humans are giving. But then again, the point is right that it's never going to happen that way. You have to keep iterating, keep improving, and over a period, you actually land up with the right answer possible. So I think, that's a very nice answer. I think we already exceeded time, Matthew. Do we have some time for one more question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So the last question that I would like to ask, which is again, it has to do with a lot about people come from different backgrounds. Now, let me just make it easy. I'll kind of collate all the different questions into one question. So primarily, let's talk about three profiles. One is low-level freshers, one is mid-age, and one is senior level. So low, mid, and senior, these are the three profiles that we can think of. And what kind of contribution does these three profiles have in the AI space? So what can I mean, as a senior leader, I don't expect this person to start learning all the different nitty-gritties about deep learning, all the models that are out there. So how do we kind of define some specific outcomes for these three levels?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before, but I will do my best to try thinking through this on the fly. So my guess is that when you're doing entry level, and we're talking data science specifically or machine learning?
Specifically data science and AI. So it's a huge field. So I don't expect everybody to learn everything. So what do you think?
I think they're going to look quite different. Or sort of different. So in the data science space, if you're just getting started, I'm guessing you're going to be doing a lot of kind of ad hoc analysis, doing more business intelligence kind of things, or data analysis up of data kind of stuff. At the entry level in the AI space, I think you're going to be spending most of your time just writing code, like the regular code around a pre-trained model in order to incorporate a model someone else has trained into production. Then as you move up to the next level in the data science space, I think you're going to spend a lot of time doing more types of, more difficult statistical analysis, things like causal analysis or, mechanistic, I'm trying to think, there's not many scenarios for that. Less exploratory kind of analysis and ad hoc analysis and more, what should we be doing as a business in order to maximize revenue in this specific space? Or what if we did this, what would happen? More difficult questions you'd be solving. And you'll probably still be doing a lot of data cleanup at that point in time. At the mid-level for the AI developer, you're probably going to be still working with pre-trained models and doing transfer learning, essentially augmenting existing pre-trained models to solve a custom one-off solution, and possibly training your own models at that point in time. When you get up to the most senior levels, my hope is that you're not spending as much time in the weeds with everything. You're thinking more big picture in terms of, types of analyses could we be doing in order to help the business, or what kinds of data should we be collecting in order to answer questions we can't answer, or how do we rebuild the business around a new data science model or AI business plan. But hopefully you're still working with all of the mid-level and junior level data scientists, so that you don't get too far away, too far out of the weeds. Because I know that's a big problem, especially in the software development space, where you get what we call ivory tower architects, a software developer who's graduated to architect that doesn't spend any time in the code. So all of the suggestions they make sound great on paper, but are terrible if you're actually building the software. And in the AI space, I'm guessing if you get up to the most senior levels, it's a lot of advice. You're essentially spending your time learning about different solutions in the industry. You're trying to figure out what things you could be doing as an organization to improve holistically. Probably spending in both of these spaces a lot of time trying to change the culture of the company. So one of the things I find is most difficult to get an organization to transform, digital transformation, is to get them as an organization to adopt a culture of data science, where we start looking at experimentation as a positive thing, and we start looking at evidence and feedback and all of these different things that are obvious to data scientists, but to the regular employees sound completely backwards. It's like, well, why don't we just do the right thing every time, is what the regular employee would say. And the data scientist said, we have no idea what the right thing to do is. We need to run experiments to figure out the best way to do X. So.
Wonderful. I think that does make a lot of sense. I mean, especially a lot of folks have asked this question specifically. So I thought it's best that if I can kind of summarize it into one single question. So thanks a lot for your time, Matthew. I'm extremely sorry we crossed our timeline. It was supposed to be at 9:30 for us. We're only at 9:36 here. So, but I really appreciate you spending some time with our friends out here. So on behalf of Insight, a big thank you to you and Gio. Both of you have been really kind of supportive, and the way you have kind of explained the world of AI to people and the way you made them understand the importance of it in today's world, I'm pretty sure everybody is quite happy to carry this valuable knowledge back. So friends, can we all give a big thank you to Matthew? So Matthew, I don't know if you're able to see the chat. Our folks here, yeah, could you?
Okay.
Yeah, so folks are really happy to have heard from you.
I just wanted to say thank you as well. I love sharing knowledge, especially all over the world. And in fact, I've now spoken on every continent in the world, including Antarctica. But I have never had an opportunity to speak in India yet. So if there's ever a conference or a seminar or anything you guys are aware of that would get me out to India, I would love to spend time there.
Perfect. I mean, I'm pretty sure this would really open doors for your future discussions out here in India. So thanks a lot for your time, Matthew. And I think that's all for today. We'll be sharing a small gratitude mail. And apart from this, we would love to kind of share a little snippet of what we have done here. We'll share it online as well. So thank you for your time, and thank you, Gio, for your time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We may all terminate our sessions now. We are done for the day. Thank you.